Okay, we're going to start with an exterior walk around of the Skyline, taking advantage of one of the few periods of sunshine available in the time that I had it, and it really does look nice. I especially like the haunches that it gets from those pumped out rear arches, plus this Bayside blue is the definitive colour that I think of when these cars are mentioned. On the interior, it's a bit more generic and very 90s Japan, and while it's all perfectly functional, it doesn't feel particularly special in here. Though I was glad to find that this particular car has been fitted with a Momo Race steering wheel, which is a personal favourite of mine, and it's got a really good feel to it. But this is very much a car that's more about the underpinnings, and a prime part of that is the engine. I believe these cherry red cam colours are unique to the R34, but the twin-turbo RB26 straight 6 has been a staple ingredient of the all-wheel drive GT-R formula since the R32 was launched in 1989, and this example seems largely stock, aside from the cone-type air intakes and a pretty fat exhaust.
Right, Nissan Skyline GT-R. This is an R34 that we've got here and taken it out to Tsukuba, just near Tokyo, just to give it a little drive around and see what I think of it. And I have to say, when I first got in it, I didn't really like it. It was quite harsh, the exhaust booms, and in general it felt like there was never an opportunity to really use it. But as long as you try and keep the revs up a bit, it's a bit happier. And although the kind of road I'm on now is honestly a bit too tight for it, this isn't really the kind of thing you want to be driving it on most of the time, it's begun to warm to me and I've begun to get used to it. I'm going to stick in some footage here of some of the driving I was doing earlier from a dash cam perspective. But as you can see, it's out in the woods on these small country roads through the hills, and yeah, it's actually acquitted itself quite well considering it's such a big heavy car on such tiny roads, which quite frankly I'd have been better off with my Daihatsu on these. You can see we've got a lot of foliage down, a bit of wetness, and there's quite a bit of evidence on the crash barriers of where people have run out of talent as well, which somewhat concentrates your mind and makes you decide to stay out of boost a bit.
I'd set off north from Tokyo to the Tsukuba area on a fairly grey, miserable day, which I have to say didn't exactly give much opportunity to stretch the GT-R's legs. That's going to be a bit of a theme for this video, by the way. You're not going to see any heroic pulls at the first sign of a gap in the traffic. Japanese speed limits are pretty low, and while you can generally get away with being quite liberal in your interpretation of them, I'm both a guest here and in a borrowed car, so I'm not going to push my luck on wet roads which I don't know. As the journey progressed north, the expressway blended into smaller, more local roads, and soon mist-shrouded peaks began to appear on the horizon of Ibaraki Prefecture. Now, why Tsukuba? Well, there's a couple of contenders with where to take the GT-R, but those of you who are fans of long-running manga and anime series Initial D will probably already have twigged that Tsukuba is the home to a character named Godfoot, the R34 GT-R driving half of a pair of middle-aged racers who appear in a later story and against whom Keisuke races in his FD. That particular race happens on a mountain road named Fruits Line, so it seemed like it would be a cool idea to take the Nissan for a run down that road and see what earned it that cameo in Initial D. To this end, a path was chosen which climbed up the mountain, contending with little of the traffic, but the occasional fairly solid set of speed humps. This is Route 236, known appropriately enough as the Tsukuba Skyline. This forms a spinal route along the profile of the mountain that, if followed the whole way, will deliver you to a cable car that you can ride up to the peak. But we're here to find Fruits Line, so as the road levelled out somewhat, visibility drawing in due to now being at the same level as the mist we'd seen previously from below, we approach the marker put into the GPS and...
the road's closed.
Oh shit.
That's the Fruits Line road.
Wonder why it's closed.
Because of idiots in modified cars, probably.
It seemed like access to the top of the road had been closed off in a fairly permanent manner, with a barrier all the way across the junction. So, for the time being, it was onwards through the mist toward the peak, a route that would eventually take me in a large clockwise loop around to try and approach Fruits Line from the other end at the bottom. I found where to access the bottom of Fruits Line, peeling off right where the main road bores through the mountain with a tunnel. Not that I don't like a good tunnel. But unfortunately, although this was indeed the start of Fruits Line, coming at it from this direction was another defeat, with scaffolding barriers across the width of the road. Though this is just one of dozens of roads in the area, so before returning to Tokyo, I sought out one of the smaller mountain roads to explore a bit further.
Now even up here, it's getting a bit dark and dingy up here. It was a bit lighter earlier, although we did have some fairly impressive mist when we first came in the morning, thanks to all the early morning rain. But no, the roads are... well, they're rough, you can hear the car vibrating, and they are very small and tight, but they're all actually in remarkably good condition. They're all smooth and well paved, and other than the random detritus on them that's fallen off the trees, it's clear that the work is put in to maintain these, and you can actually use them. Okay, I wouldn't want to use them in winter with a foot of snow on them, because I think that would be a somewhat interesting experience, but as they are now, it's actually quite nice, and you can drive around, and even if you're not using the car, you certainly get some impressive views to look out on while you're doing it. Now, compared to some of the roads I was on earlier, one thing I noticed here is that there's no real guardrail. Bit of wooden fence there, that's not gonna help you. And okay, on one side of the road you've got a foot deep drainage ditch, which I'm sure will stop you but not in a way that your car's going to enjoy. Oh, there's a bit of guardrail. But no, other than the sheer drop into a load of trees, it's pretty good up here. It's you really feel like you're out in the boonies in Japan, because you're out in the boonies in Japan. Bit of a tight one here, we get ourselves around. Oh, I'm really noticing with the GT-R and stuff like this that you're just not using the car. It's staying at around 2000 RPM, and to be honest, it just doesn't wake up until about 3, which means I'm never really getting into boost. And if you try and give it some throttle at low RPM, it is very, very lazy. Godzilla does not like being asked to do anything without his morning coffee, and his morning coffee starts at about 3 grand. Oh, that's a bit rough. But we're really corkscrewing our way up here. You can see here's the first bit of daylight I've seen in about 15 minutes. Some camping area up here by the looks of it, some cleared waste ground. It's even a phone box in the middle of nowhere. What have we got advertising here? 4-wheel drive something or other. Well, we've got 4-wheel drive, so I guess we go in this direction. You see they've got the mirrors on the corners there, which do give you a bit of a hint of what's going to be coming towards you. They don't have them on all the corners, of course, that would be far too easy. But they're there enough that when you're coming up to a corner you can see round it, and you can see if there's some lunatic in a little K-van coming the other way with his gardening supplies, which is all they're really there for. They're not there to give you full view of the road, they're just there to give you a bit of early warning. I imagine this is a bit easier actually when it's darker and you can really see people's headlights coming around the corner at you. Round another turn. But no, this road is beginning to smooth out now. I think maybe the way we come up before is not the way that the locals use, and it's maybe not looked after as much, whereas this is a bit wider, it's a bit smoother, and there is a bit less tat all over the road. Coming up now to the bit of fog there. See someone's radar dish, broadcasting tower of some kind up there. Just someone parked, don't know what they're doing. And here we go, and again you come around, put the car around, watch out for the massive fallen branches, watch out for anyone coming the other way, and round we go, and it's pretty smooth and flowy. Round a tight switchback again. Yes, I am sticking more to the middle of the road because I don't fancy flicking up a massive branch into one of my side skirts or something. A few lumps on the road there before we get into the smoother surface stuff. But yes, the car drives nicely. I didn't really like it to start with, but now I've driven it a bit and got used to the slight drone it has from the exhaust and the stiffer suspension than I normally have. It's pretty pleasant. And now we're in a convoy. Here we are in our R34 following the R32. not quite sure this is following Grandad, but certainly following an uncle or elder member of the family. Someone once described to me the look of the rear lights on a Skyline as looking like an electric cooker hob, which is perhaps not inaccurate, although sounds more insulting than it really needs to. In fact, it was an R32 that we originally wanted to try and have a go in. That's what I originally fancied having a drive of around here, but unfortunately the place that we found to supply us a car have an R32 and someone has gone and binned it, so R34 it was. Everyone gets to go at the truck's pace now. Get over those gratings. It's at least you can see that they've got the gratings there, and it's not just a sharp foot deep ditch that's going to rip your wheel off.
I didn't get many chances to really dig in and make use of the power on the kind of roads I was exploring, but on the odd occasion when I did, you really do notice that it's got some shove over and above what you expect from the book power figure. And that's the thing. Following along with this R32, both it and the R34 are listed as having the same 276 horsepower. Now, depending who you ask, this is either due to a gentleman's agreement between the major Japanese manufacturers or a homologation requirement for the GT300 class of the Japanese Touring Car Championship. However, either way, what people may not be aware of is that this 276 horsepower figure is pretty much a blatant lie. And the general consensus is that a standard car will in reality make a solid 40 or more horsepower in excess of this.
Helpful K car here, letting us get past.
Anyway, I'm about at the end of my time with the Skyline, so now I'm going to drive it off into the sunset and back to Tokyo. Hope you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up below if you did, and I'll be back soon with another uniquely Japanese driving experience, so subscribe to catch up with me for that.